Welcome to Conversations with Big Rich. This is an interview-style podcast. These interviewed are all involved in the off-road industry. Being involved, like all of my guests are, is a lifestyle, not just a job. I talk to past, present, and future legends, as well as business owners, employees, media, and land use warriors. Men and women who have found their way into this exciting and addictive lifestyle we call off-road. We discuss their personal history, struggles, successes, and reboots. We dive into what drives them to stay active in off-road. We all hope to shed some light on how to find a path into this world that we live and love and call off-road.
Whether you're crawling the Red Rocks of Moab or hauling your toys to the trail, Maxxis has the tires you can trust for performance and durability. 4 wheels or 2. Maxxis tires are the choice of champions because they know that whether for work or play, for fun or competition, Maxxis tires deliver. Choose Maxxis. Tread victoriously.
Have you seen 4Low magazine yet? 4Low magazine is a high-quality, well-written, four-wheel drive-focused magazine for the enthusiast market. If you still love the idea of a printed magazine, something to save and read at any time, 4Low is the magazine for you. 4Low cannot be found in stores, but you can have it delivered to your home or place of business. Visit 4lowmagazine.com to order your subscription today. My guest this week on Conversations with Big Rich is a small business owner doing things his way. Having grown up in a hot rod family, he learned in high school that girls were more interested in Jeeps than hot rods. So he sold his 57 Chevy two-door and bought a 4x4. Good morning, Mr. Tim Ryan. How are you doing?
I'm good. Better than I deserve, probably. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I deserve it.
Yes, you do.
Glad that you're able to be on the podcast. Want to say thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me.
So I've known you for, well, I think since the beginning at Trail Hero, so like 9 years, I think is when we met at Trail Hero. I may have met you sooner, but if I did, I apologize that I don't remember. But let's start at the very beginning. And where were you born and raised?
I was born in Los Angeles, actually Torrance, California.
Oh, LA.
And yeah, but we escaped. I always say before it was a thing. We escaped in the 70s. Crime was bad enough back in the 70s, and so we had some family in Salt Lake, and they said it's pretty good up here, so we left.
Nice. And so the 70s, you were, was it early 70s, late 70s?
Mid 70s.
Okay,
yeah.
So you were around 10 or 12 years old at that point?
Yep.
So what was it like those early years? You're talking about the crime-ridden. Was it more the family thing, or were you, was school trouble? Well,
I had to, so we lived in Inglewood, ultimately. That's where we left from.
Okay.
And it was pretty rough. I had to, our front yard was the San Diego freeway, and you know how the freeways are built up in Los Angeles. And so that big wall of ivy was our front view, but we were right by 2 big streets, and I was in 3rd and 4th grade and had to walk underneath the San Diego freeway through the little tunnels and step over the winos that were passed out and the homeless, and walk past a junior high where I got knives pulled on me daily because I knew I had a nickel for milk money.
Wow.
People trying to break into our home when they saw my dad leave, and they knew we were home without a dad, so they tried to break in then. It just got crazy.
So
we got out.
Yeah. And so getting held up for milk money, huh?
Yes. Silly. I don't know that they ever would have stuck me, but I wasn't willing to find out. I was that smart at that age anyways.
Did you always keep your money split between 2 pockets?
There wasn't really much to split. It was a nickel.
A nickel, okay.
Yeah.
You couldn't bring 2 nickels and give one up, huh? Put
Exactly.
one in the other pocket.
Apparently I wasn't that smart though.
All right. So what were those what besides the the trauma of going to school and getting held up for milk money, what else was it like down there?
Well, so my dad and his best friend, who I still consider my uncle, Uncle Dave, this guy he's one of a kind. He's crazy. But they grew up together. They grew up building cars together. He's quite a case. He's quite a personality, and everybody there has since migrated to Arizona and Utah. But I grew up in that world. Like if you can envision American Graffiti and Hollywood Nights, those movies, that was their life. That was exactly their life. To this day, I'm still hearing crazy stories of the stuff those two used to pull. And I kept thinking we needed to make a movie out of it or something, or at least film it. That was Nathan Riddle from Crawl Zone's idea when we were talking about it on the way down to trail here one time. He's like, we need to go film these two. Why we still have them here? But they were always building hot rods and old cars. And my uncle transitioned into choppers in the 70s and stuff. But he had a 10-car garage down there in Torrance, and that was it. That's where I grew up, was old cars and building the hot rods. And so it kind of just came to me as a little kid, and then I grew into it as a teenager and stayed with it.
So what did your dad do for work?
He and my grandfather were both truck drivers in LA.
Okay. So
they
truck
did this
delivery drivers of some type?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of it was with Garrett Air Research, that does the turbos and stuff.
Right. Okay. And what was school like for you besides the not having milk money every day?
It was pretty average for elementary school down there, and we left. Let's see. I think I was going into 5th grade is when we moved, and then moved to Salt Lake City at that point.
Okay. And the transition to Salt Lake City, what did you think when you got up into that area?
I liked it overall. I mean, it's kind of hard, as a little kid or at any age going to new schools and stuff, but I had kind of got used to it. Honestly, my parents were divorced when I was extremely young, before elementary school age. And between moving and back and forth to parents, I thought about that recently. And I told my kids, I said, I went to 10 different elementary schools. And they went, what? So I was used to change at that point, and it was not too bad. But I tell you what, the first thing I realized I liked about Utah was the change in seasons. I love snow. I still to this day love snow, and I love snow wheeling. But seeing all 4 seasons was new to me. I mean, in Los Angeles, we had a banana tree that was producing in our yard, so that seemed weird at Christmas. But I just immediately loved the 4 seasons.
Yeah, when I moved to Idaho, I thought the idea of having snow on the ground was going to be great until and it was as long as we were able to keep the house warm. But the garage, I couldn't work in it because the floor was, there was no insulation in the garage. The floor was concrete, and it was it got dang cold up there.
Yes.
Where you have
a radiant heat, cold.
Yeah. You have that propane heater turbo thing, that you plug into the wall, hooked to a propane tank. It's like a little jet engine. And I had to have that thing less than a foot away from my hands while I'm working. And I thought, I can't get shit done here, And
yes.
When Shelley and I finally went on the road full time, and Hallie, the youngest, went to college, we decided to move out, and so we rented the house and sold everything. And we, as we were driving away, I was like, "Wow, this is great! I don't have to go back. We don't have to move back to Idaho." And she goes, "What? You don't like Idaho?" And I said, "Well, I like Idaho. It's just, I can't live there if I can't work on things. It's just too dang cold."
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different type of cold too. When it's on cement, that radiant cold will go through your bones. That and the outside wind.
Yeah. It's always windy, it seems. It's kind of, it's too close to Wyoming.
Well, they always say in Idaho, it depends on where you're at, because Colorado, Wyoming, and Idaho take turns jabbing at each other. One sucks because the other one blows.
Correct. I used to say that about Cedar City. It's always windy in
Yes.
Cedar City because St. George blew and Salt Lake sucked.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then you're going to school now up in Salt Lake area, and how were you as a student?
I was, I would say I was above average. I wasn't, a valedictorian. I wasn't a straight A student. But I had above average intelligence. Like I didn't even really put myself out there to try and excel, and I would get B's and B pluses and A minuses, and so I wasn't a valedictorian. I was kind of a screw off and a class clown, to be honest with you.
Really? I wouldn't have thought that.
I would much rather make people laugh than do homework.
Right? Okay. I get that. I got in trouble for that a lot. Did you participate in any sports or any activities like that in school?
Through high school, I played soccer. We were the first years of a soccer team at the high school I went to, so it was called a club. It wasn't as organized and didn't get all the funding. But I wanted to play football every year, but I never played as a youth, and so I just had this image, football players are big and bad, and I probably couldn't get into that. And then when the team comes out every year, I'm like, well, I'm bigger and faster and stronger than half those guys. But basketball, my whole family was really into basketball. All my siblings, including my sister, played high school ball, and we're quite good at it. But every time there were tryouts, the coach always wanted his previous team from the previous year, so I didn't make it through every cut until the final cut, which is when they ran plays from the previous year. So if you didn't play the previous years, that's how he got his own team back. The rest of us were running around trying to figure out where we were supposed to be. They didn't even explain the play to us.
Right.
So we looked like we didn't know what we were doing. So, but yeah, I was athletic. I was 6'1", so I wasn't short, but I was athletic. But the only organized sport I played was soccer. But my last couple of years of high school, they organized the high school drags, and all the high schools in Utah were invited to participate, and me and all my buddies kind of ran the show because we all had hot rods in high school, and had already spent all our time out at what used to be Bonneville Raceway in Salt Lake City, and ultimately was Rocky Mountain Raceway, and of course now they've closed down. But the high school drags were an absolute blast. Like that was where I felt at home.
So, your dad built street rods, and then you guys moved up to Salt Lake, and he continued to do that?
Not as much as in Salt Lake. I mean, he kept a couple of his cars, but he sold off most of them before we moved because we just really couldn't get them all to Utah. And it really made me sad because he had a Model T for me. He was saving for me, and I knew that at the age of 8 when we moved, but he had to sell it. And so I was kind of bummed even at that age, but it all worked out. But he still kept a 28 Model A Roadster that he and his buddies, kind of a group project they all built, and he bought them out. And they used to go down to where the Corvette Club hung out in Marina Del Rey and call out Corvettes, and never lost to one, he said. But it was a small block, it was a 327, a Muncie 4-speed, and a Ford 9-inch rear with homemade ladder bars, homemade headers, and all that kind of stuff. And it was an absolute blast. In fact, I was kind of spoiled. That's where I got to learn. That's the car that I got to learn to drive in.
Nice.
And so, yeah, I was a little spoiled in that aspect. But he also kept one that he still has to this day as a 1933 Buick Victorian. I believe it's 58 series. And it's a show car winner now. Like, it got mothballed for a number of years while we had all the kids at home, and he got laid off with the Jimmy Carter era recession and in the construction industry. And so it kind of sat in mothballs for a few years. And then when everybody moved out, he was able to pull it back out and do a restoration on it. And it's a car show winner everywhere now.
Nice.
Yeah.
So he, when you guys moved up to Salt Lake, he started working construction, or did he continue trucking?
He spent a lot of years in construction up here. That was the bulk of what he did. Yeah.
All right. And what was your first car? I know that you said you got to the 28, you got to drive the, learn to drive in it, but what was your first car?
My first car was a 57 Chevy, a 2-door Bel Air.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I started out spoiled. Well, okay,
Big fin.
I say spoiled, but yeah, but really, what it was a project my dad had picked up to kind of fix and flip and make some money on. But it was to say it was a shell is not an overstatement. It to get it home, he had to bolt wheels on it. He had to sit on a milk crate. There's no interior, no powertrain. He had to use vice grips and place the steering wheel and use the handbrake. Like it was a shell. And so that's where I learned. So my dad, like I said, he brought it home for him to fix and flip and make some money on. But I guess so. He and I had some rough times in high school. I was kind of lippy, and he was old school, you know, by the
Right.
book. And you're gonna get. I got my butt kicked more than once by a size 12 boot, but I guess he says to this day I made some comment about dropping out of high school, and I think if I did, I don't recall saying it, but I probably did that just to get under his skin and stir the pot a little bit. But well, it worked in my favor because he thought, man, maybe we could make this father and son project and help our relationship and all that, and so that's what we did. And I learned, how to rebuild wheel cylinders and master cylinders instead of just bolt new stuff on like we all do these days. And so I learned it from the ground up and had to come up with every piece and every component at it, and was washing dishes at a restaurant to earn money at age 14 and 15 for it.
Nice.
It was a fun project.
So was it a local restaurant, something really close?
Yeah. I ride my bike to work kind of thing, just a few miles away.
Excellent.
But yeah.
And what about did you attend like the dances and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we did. Me and my buddies. I had a core group of fans. Like my graduating class, to be honest with you, I really didn't like many. It was kind of cliquish,
Right.
And so me and my buddies just hung out and we did our thing. We had our core group. We all had hot rods. Two of us had 57 Chevys. One had a 55. One had a 49 that his grandfather had brought new, and another one had a 58 Impala, and that kind of thing was our core group. And there was a place in town there that looked kind of like an old 50s hamburger joint. And so it seemed natural we made that our hangout,
Right.
But we did. We all went to the dances and proms and stuff.
So was did with the movies out like American Graffiti and Dazed and Confused, did you like those kind of movies? Do you like those kind of
Absolutely.
movies? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, the soundtrack of my life, I swear, during those years was Beach Boys and Jan and Dean. And, that was in Salt Lake City, State Street, cruising state on Friday and Saturday nights was a big deal back then. And so me and all my buddies in our cars were always up there. And there was an old Grand Central store that, later became Fred Meyer, but their huge parking lot right there on State Street in downtown Salt Lake City area ended up being a big car show every Friday and Saturday nights. Guys would bring their families up in the cooler and the chairs, and we just, just like a car show, we just hang out and talk cars, and somebody'd go find somebody and they'd go off and drag race somewhere. And man, it was a great time.
Right. It's the car culture nowadays is so much different than back then for the youth. Our young days don't equate to the same thing that the youth of today has.
Absolutely. They don't have a clue what it used to be like. It was quite cool then.
Yeah. The street takeovers and everything. I think that's about the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life.
You and me both.
Talk about just, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't approve of any of that stuff. And I'm glad, even my kids, they didn't like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, mine are all into crawling.
Yeah.
So through high school, you're doing the hot rod thing. Did you guys have shop classes?
Yeah.
Okay.
We fortunately they hadn't done away with that stuff back then, so we had auto mechanics, and we took that every year. It was a fun class. We enjoyed it. We did a lot of stuff to our vehicles in there.
And then out of high school, did you what was the job after dishwashing? What kind of jobs did you file through as a youth?
through high school, there was a Pizza Hut in town there that I worked at till all hours of the night. Man, they didn't care that you were underage. I'd work till 3 a.m. after you got done cleanup. But a retail store, a home center, like a hardware store, I worked there as well. Just trying to earn enough money to fix that dang car up,
Right. And then
A little bit of landscaping as well. I forgot about that till just now. Condominiums, property management kind of stuff.
okay.
Yeah.
And then when you got out of high school, what was the next step?
Oh, let's see. My dad and I butted heads a bit at that time, of course. And about 2 weeks after graduation, a buddy and I moved out, and we got an apartment. And of course, we were closer to State Street then, so we could spend more time cruising state on the weekends.
Was that by design?
No, it's just what was available, and it was convenient that it was located there as well. It was an apartment complex back in what would that have been, early 80s, I guess.
All right.
Yeah. I graduated in 82, so it would have been 82 we moved out. And we had that whole group, though. There was even more. Like that kid I moved out with had a 72 Chevelle that was extremely fast as well. And it's kind of funny. All these friends of mine with the old cars, we go up on State Street, and of course a lot of guys, we're trying to meet girls as well. I mean, that's what part of going up there. But we finally had one girl say one night, like, "Why do you guys like these bubbly cars?" And we're like, "What? You're weird. Get out of here," But we go up there, and they have the bubbled shape to them is what they're talking about, like a bathtub, like, you don't understand. Cool. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Well, I had another buddy that had a CJ5 that he had rolled, but then completely frame off restored it. And it was, a buddy of mine calls the Skittles colors yellow, but he did black and chrome, and it was, the 80s were definitely the chrome era, and so our cars were all chrome too. But that Jeep was such an eye catcher. We'd go up on State Street in his Jeep, and we'd meet girls like crazy. And I'm like, I'm the same guy as in the one in that old car. They like Jeeps. So after that, I always wanted a Jeep.
And when did you get your first Jeep?
I did not get my first Jeep till, so we got married young and started having kids right away too. So Jeep never made anything that really worked for us. And so I'd always built Blazers and Suburbans and stuff over the years. And I didn't get my first Jeep till, my gosh, less than 10 years ago, I think.
Okay.
I always had, big block Suburbans and Blazers and things like that. And I really got into the 69 to 72 Chevys for a while, and I still love that body style.
Right.
But they didn't. Yeah. So I'd had Blazers and Suburbans over the years, but my first Jeep, believe it or not, is my Jeepster Commando that I have now.
Okay. And what year is that Jeepster?
67.
67.
Yeah.
LS swapped?
Not yet, but I have all the components for it. It's all sitting in the shop and waiting for me to have time, but customers' vehicles come first.
Correct.
They pay.
Some businesses think that.
I always said that when we got into a bigger location, that as soon as I got in there, I would start building mine, because I've got a JKU frame for it, and I've got Super Duty axles, and I've got an LQ9 6-liter for it, and I've got all these components for it, and I can have a rolling chassis as soon as we get all that part done. But as soon as we got moved in here, I'm like, we are so far behind. I can't even think about working on my own stuff right now when people have been waiting for months and months to get their vehicles in here. So still sitting.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
I feel like that would not be a very good display of integrity if I brought my own stuff ahead of others that have been waiting and have paid.
Right. Unless you're doing it like from 2 a.m. till 5 a.m.
Yeah. And we're so stacked full right now that I couldn't even fit mine in there anyways.
Okay. And so you're living with a friend, an apartment out by off State Street somewhere. And what were you doing to make ends meet? What were you working at?
Me and some of my friends worked at a mom and pop type parts store in West Valley City, right by where we went to high school. And it was just a cool little parts store, and we were all just working there and building our cars. Like, that was our direction in life at the time.
And how long did you work at the parts store?
I started there during high school as well. I was probably there about 3 years, I'm guessing. Great guy. Bob Childs was the owner. He was more of a grocery store background kind of guy, but a retailer and just a super individual to work for.
And how many of your buddies worked there?
I think there's 3 of us there at peak, and everybody else that wasn't working there was usually there hanging out. It was like a car show in the parking lot. And of course, the old parts stores that have bar stools in front of the counter. And
Oh, yeah.
so it was more of a hangout.
As long as it attracted customers.
Yeah, it actually did. In fact, there was one police officer in the area that was building an old car too, and he and I became friends. We started doing a lot of horse trading for parts and helping each other out kind of thing. I had stuff because I'd bought an extra car and tore it completely down for parts and then sent it off to the crusher when there's nothing useful on it. And we all had part stashes. I'm sure my parents loved that because I was still at home part of that time. But so yeah, this police officer and I, we did a bunch of trading, and people like that would just come in and do business because they'd see the cool cars in the parking lot. So it worked out pretty good for the owner as well.
Nice. And what was the next step after the parts store?
I actually went on a church mission for the LDS
okay.
church. A year and a half, went down to Venezuela, learned some Spanish, had some good times, and then came back. And it was the worst decision ever. But after I got back, for whatever reason, this was 1984, decided I didn't want to work on cars anymore, and I wanted to be a yuppie or something. I don't know. I embarrassed to this day to admit it, but I traded that 57 Chevy in for a Toyota 4-wheel drive. I wanted to go wheeling.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a big move in the wrong direction.
My
dad tried to talk me out of it. He tried real hard to talk me out of it, but in the end, Dad doesn't know best when you're that age,
True. Very true. I've been through that on both ends of that.
Yeah, I regret that to this day. People often ask, I see people on social media, in fact, even asking, what vehicle do you regret the most selling? And I'm like, oh, hands down.
I've got a couple, but my first car was a 54 Volkswagen Bug that I had built a pretty strong 1835 for it. And, it was all California specialed out, slammed and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I had that I used to drag that around from places that I lived for years with it not running. And I finally sold it when I was in Cedar City because I was leaving Utah, going back to Northern California, and I needed the money to be able to move.
It makes sense.
And the guy that bought it was a local guy there that promised me he wasn't going to cut it up and that they were going to restore it. I don't know if that's what he did or not, but I mean, even though I had changed everything to fiberglass, all the bonnets and the fenders and everything else, I still had all the original stuff. And I mean, I used to carry that stuff around all the time. And I mean, I had it from, what was it, 72 to 99 when I finally sold it.
Wow, that's amazing.
And it probably didn't run the last 10 or 15 years. But I always wanted to fix it back up. Never did.
I get that.
Yep. So then you get this Toyota pickup, and how stock did it stay?
Just a lift and tires is really all it needed. Man, that thing wheeled really good, quite honestly. I mean, those early it was an 82,
right?
A little 22R, and it was a good little truck until it wasn't, as they say. But it had the 4-speed instead of the 5-speed, and I didn't know at the time, but those are notoriously weak. And and then I got married shortly after, and it turns out there was probably a reason why I bought that without knowing it. But my wife, she claims to this day that she always had this image in her head, as girls grow up, what their wedding's gonna be like, what their husband's, who's gonna be their husband, or what's he gonna look like. So she only wanted a guy with a small nose, a normal nose, and a small truck. Those are her requirements. And so maybe God had a reason to make me buy that truck so I could meet her. Otherwise, I don't know that she would have been interested in me.
So you have a small nose.
I have a normal size
Normal
nose.
size nose.
Apparently,
I
it
never
was good
paid
enough.
attention.
I thought that was an interesting feature that somebody would be interested in, but it worked. I
and
win.
and your wife is Sherry, correct?
Cherie, yeah,
Cherie. Okay.
yeah,
And how many
yep.
kids do you guys have?
We have four. Well,
Four
eight
kids.
now because they're all married.
Okay. Yeah.
Just married the last one off in June, in fact.
Nice.
Yeah, we got a great group, and
And
we now have 9 grandchildren.
how did you guys meet?
It was a blind date, and we were engaged 2.5 weeks later.
Wow.
That was pretty quick. Huh? I mean, 3 months to the day after that, we were married. We're like, so let's just get this done.
Excellent. Excellent. And
Yeah,
still going strong.
still going strong. She still likes me for some reason.
It's that normal size nose.
It must be the nose. Yeah, she's a sweetheart. She's good. We just celebrated our 39th anniversary.
39. Wow.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you. That's
And
good.
so you're you got the Toyota pickup truck and the normal size nose. You meet Cherie, and were you came back from your mission? What were you doing work wise?
Property management. In fact,
Okay.
my dad had got into that a number of years before, and so I actually joined the same company, and I was his assistant manager. So that was interesting because we got along a lot better than we used to. But he and I are two that we kind of butted heads a little bit, but we were a lot better at that time. Of course, we managed some high-end condominium properties in the Salt Lake Valley.
Okay. Do you attribute that to the year and a half mission?
Not so much. It was just more, it's who you know.
Okay.
And he knew one of the higher ups in the company, and they had need for not only help there, but later on, I actually moved on and managed some of their properties myself. And I even go to, when you're first starting out and you're needing a second hustle. Park City was trying to become a nationwide resort, but it wasn't near as grown up as it is now. And I go up there on the weekends, Friday night and Saturday night till about 3 in the morning or so. And they called it security, but it was driving the drunks to and from town and picking them up at 3 in the morning from the bars when they shut down and that kind of stuff. It made for some interesting stories, I'll tell you that.
Really?
Oh,
So
yeah.
without naming names, you want to share some?
Well, like example, we had a snowstorm come in, and so they have it was the only condominium complex that had been built out by I-80. As you come up over Parley's Canyon out of Salt Lake and you get into the Park City area, it's completely built up, and there's businesses and homes and everything everywhere now. But back then, there was one condominium complex that went from the frontage road up the hillside, and people had started buying those and renting them out. And there was no such thing as Vrbo or Airbnb or anything, but travel agents, I guess, would get people from the East Coast and come out here for ski vacations and rent them. And so you get a lot of people from New Jersey out there, it seemed too. And they were always the most interesting sort. Oh my gosh, and I mean that like annoying. It was East Coast big money, annoying.
Right.
But they had this, you'd see those like 1-ton van chassis with dually rears and the bus type thing on the back, like the rental car companies used to have and stuff. And they had one of these that we would use to take residents or visitors back and forth into Park City, because it was probably about a 10-mile drive or so. And Main Street in Park City was quite popular at the time, and bars and restaurants and nightclubs and things. And so we'd, like every hour on the hour kind of thing, drive people into town and pick up people and bring back people that are ready to come back. And this one weekend, it was a major snowstorm. In fact, I don't know that I'd seen one since that big, but it dropped 6 feet of snow in 24 hours. And at the time, I had a 71 Blazer I was building, and man, it got around just great. That back when 33-inch tires were huge, and I just got my 33-inch mutters on it, so I thought I was pretty cool. But I was bringing home a load of these people back from Park City. And in fact, everybody was trying to fit on the bus at the same time. So I'm pretty sure I violated some rules back then. But I had that thing so full, there was not even standing room. Ladies were sitting on the engine doghouse, it was a van type chassis, and coming back, and it had dualies on the rear, and they were pretty much bald. And it was snowing so hard and coming in sideways, you couldn't see past that short little hood. Well, the road going into Park City is built up, and so it drops off steep on the sides. And so this is the only time that bus full of people that were been drinking all night long were quiet, like they were deathly silent. Everybody was a little freaked out. And when you'd feel your tire, I always call it the Helen Keller method of driving, because when I feel the tire go off one side, I'd cut back, but with the snow coming in horizontal, I couldn't tell how far I'd cut back until the tire goes off that side of the road. And so we kind of ping pong like that all the way back to the condos. And then the condos were built on a hillside, so it was a steep drive up there. And I told everybody, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to make it up here with these bald tires. You might have to get out and walk. But somehow I was able to keep the momentum going and got them all up there, and I actually got a standing ovation. But I had all kinds of fun with those people. I always tell them, if you look over here, like a tourist guide or something, if you look over there, you might see bear, and dumb stuff like that. And it was funny. Yeah, I just work them.
Excellent. And did you get tipped?
On occasion, not so much. It wasn't really a tip position, but some people would.
Yeah. Okay. So then, what was your next step?
Oh, let's see. We started having kids about then. I spent a lot of years in retail, running parts stores, and then it must have been mid 90s. I got a promotion. I was with AutoZone and took over 4 states for them. I covered northern Utah, western Wyoming, all of Idaho, and Montana. And they were starting to build stores at that time. So I was in charge of all the stores they built there, and it was a ton of windshield time. And they kept giving me lip service, that they'd give me more money or cut down my area, because it was just always windshield time. And they never came through on any promise. So I made my own luck and left.
I understand that. I had that same thing happen with Cragans, with CSK before O'Reilly's bought them all up.
Yeah. Back in the days when they were always in bankruptcy.
Yeah, exactly. So you started to do your own thing, you said, or go a different direction. What did you do?
Yeah, I just, I was trying to get off the road. Our boys were teenagers, and my wife was tired of being a single mom. And, they were active boys, and I don't mean active like always doing stuff. They're active always doing crap. They needed a dad in their lives. So I just took retail job here in the Valley, and that ended up working into, I ran this Best Buy they built here in town, and for a couple of years. But, that company's just extremely hard on their general managers. It's a really high turnover position. So I left there as well. And actually, I left there because the position that I had taken, I said, look, you know what? Let's just put me back in assistant position. I'm not digging this GM thing. They were always down my neck about any little thing. Like they didn't do any advertising on television for 6 months. And as a result, sales nationwide dropped a little bit. Well, they were trying to hold the general managers accountable for stuff like that. So I said, just put me back to an assistant position. And we did that. And things were going great for a while. And then the company wide, about every 18 months, they do what they call an operational model change. And they have a big PR campaign that comes out about, this is not job loss, it's reorganization, but it is job loss. There's always job losses whenever there's a reorganizational structural change. And there's 2 assistant positions in the stores that were dropped, and mine happened to be one of those. So they did a layoff, but they did it really good. They carried our Cobra, our medical coverage, for a year and 6 months salary, and they did it right. For as many things as there is I didn't like about the company, they sure did layoffs correctly. And so I ended up ultimately back in the automotive world, which is where my heart always is. But Novak Conversions, the gentleman that owns it just happened to have a neighbor that I somehow came in contact with. And I don't even remember how I met him, but I was doing work out of my house, just make ends meet and that kind of stuff, and word of mouth, and just kept growing and growing. And this guy suggested to me that I needed to meet his neighbor. He owns a place in town that makes Jeep parts. And I went, ooh, I'd like to talk to this guy. So we did, and he realized he needed me, and I realized I wanted to be there. And I hadn't actually just started doing shipping and receiving for him. And then, I'm old school, hardcore work ethic kind of thing. And anytime I'd see something that needed to be done, I'd just jump in and do it, even from maintenance and repair things. And so he liked that. And we had a chat at some point, and he decided to make me his chief operations officer. And it was good. We did all kinds of fun stuff. Like, they never did any marketing or advertising. And I'm like, well, we need to grow this company. I don't know how to not grow a company, and so we started doing marketing, advertising. That's how I came in contact with Rich. Was we jumped in as one of the big sponsors of Trail Hero right off the bat because we could see the potential, and his vision was excellent. So we started going to vendor shows and Jeep events and having a presence like that, and brought in all kinds of additional sales, people that didn't even know we existed and what we did. So that was good. It was a successful run there.
And you grew the business, and you guys started doing, because before you guys weren't doing installs, correct? You were just creating the different products and the kits, basically?
Correct. Yes, exactly. In fact, the salesmen, they had at times 3 and 4 salesmen, and always trying to find what that correct number of salesmen was. But I was always trying to push to get benefits for our employees, because first off, you have to have a good benefits package to attract good people. We needed machinists and things like that. And I said that the only way you're going to attract good people is if you have good benefits and pay and things that will benefit their families. And so I was always pushing for benefits and things to attract these good people. And so I was always looking for different revenue streams. And that's, one reason we started doing the marketing and advertising, and that helped greatly. But we could have done it better. We had some limitations we couldn't work with, but the salesmen were always saying that, man, people are calling in and asking if we would do the conversion for them, because who better than to do the install than people that develop the product. And so that's where I said, look, here we go. It's another revenue stream. Why don't we start doing installs and sell the product we have? And we did that for a while, and there wasn't really good support for it within the company. The culture was such that, some of the guys there just wanted to do the same old thing we'd always done. Like, JKs were huge at the time, just coming out. And I said, well, the companies that don't change and adapt to modern trends have failed. Look at places like Montgomery Ward and Sears, and there's a whole list of companies, right, that have failed because they didn't change and adapt.
Right.
So we started doing install, and it went good for a period till it didn't, and there just wasn't enough support to keep doing it. And so that went away, and it is what it is.
Yeah, I think I was the last one.
Yes, I believe so. There was another one from Texas that was in the same situation.
Okay. So then you left Novak, and you started your own business again. And
yeah, not too long after.
Right, and that's the V8 swap shop.
Correct. Yeah, I've got so much support through the industry, and you meet so many people, especially if you go as a vendor to these events, that nationwide, and even worldwide, I've got customers I ship parts to in Chile and all over the place, just from having been at Novak and put them on the map in terms of marketing and advertising. And I just learned to, I met so many amazing people. Well, like you and Shelly, for example, that's where I met you guys, was at Trail Hero.
Right.
And so much support. And there's a guy in Ohio. He owns a company called Quick Draw Brand, and he does exactly that. He's a great mechanical engineer, and he manufactures bell housings and mounts and all these things to do different types of conversions in different vehicles. And he started out, and his main line was that R2.8 turbo Cummins, in fact. And I kept getting this random text from him. When are you going to make? When is it going to be your Independence Day kind of thing? He's constantly pushing me to go out on my own. And another really incredible friend, Jake White, that owns Cardo Tracks, he kept pushing me as well to just do it, take that leap. And he told me his story, and how neat that was. And so they're very inspiring. And I had taken a job for, in fact, a local a Jeeper. In fact, Dave Polson, a local guy, really great guy. He and his family owned a trailer sales and repair company here in town,
Right.
and I worked with them for about a year, and COVID hit, and really kind of messed things up, and I still kept getting these random texts from my friend. When are you going to make it your Independence Day? And just go for it, dude, kind of thing. And we had an employee there who was going through cancer treatments at the time, and still coming. She was so dedicated. She'd come to work and everything. And there was my wife and my daughter and I at home still, and one of us got sick, and it turns out it was probably only a cold or something, but the symptoms mimicked COVID, and we're like, man, I can't go back to work not knowing, and if I got her sick, I would feel horrible, and it could kill her, and with a low immune system that she had during chemo. And so we all got tested for COVID, and of course that was on, I'm trying to think of the timeline here, but it was on a Thursday or Friday or whenever it was, and so we all had to stay home and quarantine, and the results came back. I think it was over the weekend, and we were all negative. And so I texted Dave and said, "Hey, good news, I can come back. We're all cleared now." And we didn't want to take that chance with that gal there. And I get a text from him on Sunday, July 4th. He's trying to cover his bases as well, and their attorney recommended that I go 2 weeks with a negative test at the end of that still too, to protect everybody. And so my wife and I were looking at each other on this Sunday, July 4th, and we're sitting there at the table, and she says, "So is today going to be your Independence Day?" I'm like, "You back me?" She says, "Yes, I do." Then hell yeah, it's my Independence Day. So I let Dave know, and I was like, "Hey, I am so sorry, but I feel like it's really time for me to go do my own thing now, and I got to do it." And he understood. He's an entrepreneur, a businessman, and a Jeeper, and he fully understands.
Yep.
So, and I've never looked back.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And so
it's so good when I have my wife's full support like that, though, too.
It is extremely important to have that family backing.
Absolutely. And she's my 50-50 partner.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And what, so did you have a building already, or did you just start doing things out of the garage? How did it go?
I did start one project in the garage, but looking for a building. And there's a guy in town who I've known him and his family for a long time. Like when we moved up into Cache Valley, it was late 97, like Thanksgiving weekend of 97. And so we've been here. I consider myself a local now and just love it up here. But I've known him for a long time, and he does a lot of things with real estate and buildings, buying and restoring and selling and stuff. And so I asked him to keep his eyes open for something for me, and he ended up with a small building just outside of the downtown area in Logan. And it was small, but when there's nothing in a building, it looks bigger than it really is, that feeling.
Oh, yeah.
So I walked in there and I went, "Oh, this'll do. Good place to start." And, it didn't have any heat. It was a cinder block building. And it was good at first. It worked really good, but I had so much support from the off-road industry, people referring people and people coming to me that I'd met elsewhere, and it was amazing. And it grew way faster than I anticipated, to be honest with you, way faster. And so I was stuck in that small building. My son, who was at Novak Conversions at the time, he's really good at what we do as well. He'd come help me in the evenings, and I had another buddy that's an amazing fabricator and technician, and he'd come help me in the evenings when I needed it. Just couldn't pump things out the door as fast as I wanted, but and you mentioned that little turbo style heater, propane heater you plug in the wall. That's what I had for the first winter, and it was cold.
Yes,
but it was good. It was good. We pumped some good stuff out of that little building, and we've been looking for a bigger location for 3 years plus. And if you're not in this area and in tune with the real estate market, you probably wouldn't understand. But there was nothing available that would suit what we do or be zoned for what we do. There's just nothing available. And I had real estate agents that were friends of mine watching. I had just people, family and friends watching. Um, People that work at parts stores in the valley that I know watching, and that's how I actually ultimately found this new building that we got into in September. Was one of the local parts store managers says, "Hey, I found a building you might be interested in," and I'm glad he said that because it's the perfect upgrade.
So you just moved into the new building this September.
Yeah, yep. This last September, a couple 2-3 weeks ago, we did a like kind of like a grand opening type thing, and had my buddy that owns Burley Burger chain down in Ogden, Utah, had him come up and grilling some. They do amazing gourmet burgers, and had him up here, and had a bunch of friends from the Jeep industry come up and support us, and it's a little parking lot Jeep show. It ended up going all the way down the street, both sides of the street, and we're starting to sell RC cars and parts now. So my kids that are into that built a cool RC course on the outside of the building, and we gave away a couple RC cars in a raffle, and just it was a fun day. We had to bring in some patio heaters because it was snowing, but it was a good day. It was very well attended, and just a lot of support from the Jeep community. This industry is pretty amazing at that, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's family.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
So what's on the horizon? What are the plans?
Well, right now we're just continuing on trying to catch up on the list. I mean, I got to the point where I was losing business because I tell people at one point it was like, I know I'm about a year out, but I can't tell you exactly how far because each job is different. Each build is different. We're not a cookie cutter. Some places that do this type of thing will only do an LS3. It's what they know. It's what they do. But we'll do pretty much anything anybody wants. I mean, I've got carbureted old small block Chrysler we're doing in a 65 Valiant to modern Jeeps and Gen 5 GM powertrains and everything in between. So we try and leave it up to the customer what they want, and we'll just make it work, and it works really good. But I started losing business because I was telling people how far out we are. And at one point, guys would say, "Yeah, it's a lot of money. I got to save up anyway, so that's fine. Put me on your list." And we haven't paid a non-refundable deposit. I realized that after about a year or two in, to keep the schedule honest, as I say. But eventually, we're so far out on the schedule that guys are like, I kind of wanted it by this event, or I kind of wanted it by this date. And so I get it. We're losing business, and that's like a knife in the heart for a business owner, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. So we had to make this change, and so right now it's a matter of just getting caught up, pretty much. All hands on the wheel, basically.
And how many employees are you up to?
2 additional, myself and 2 employees. And my son is one. I stole him from Novak. He knows this will be his future, and he's really good at what we do anyways, and he loves it. So it was a great fit. And another young man that I've known for a long time, and he's gone to there's a school up here called Bridgeland Applied Technology College, and they have an automotive course that's really good. And he has taken that, and then have been working at a shop in Salt Lake for a number of years, getting his experience and background, and dying to learn what we do. And I've always known him to be an incredibly hard worker. So we brought him on as well, and it's worked out really good.
Excellent. And advertising? What are you doing for advertising?
I it's word of mouth. I mean, I haven't put any money into advertising because I'm so far behind right now. I can't really bring on a whole lot of work extra until we get caught up. So another reason that I just love this industry, like they're so supportive, and all you got to do is maintain your integrity and take care of people and make people happy. So it's all word of mouth, honestly. And I love it.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
So you continuing to look for a bigger building, or are you going to expand more employees, or?
We're going to play that by ear. We're going to see what the market, the market demands. So we might have to get a bigger building at some point. I don't want to grow too much and too fast, though. I mean, some companies have kind of outgrown their britches, and then they get into financial trouble. So
right.
We're going to keep an eye on this. We're leasing this building. And so I figure our next step, this was kind of in my long range plan, was leasing a building and growing the business. And then in the next few years, as the business grows, it'll probably be time to put up our own building. And I've got some ideas how we might want to do that, like extra space that we can rent out at first until we grow into it and stuff like that.
Right.
So, but right now it's just all hands on deck, just trying to keep up with it and get caught up.
And do you have the time to participate in any of these off-road events?
Oh yeah. In fact, I'm sure you've heard of the Idaho Vintage Jeep Rally.
Oh yeah, RJ Jackman.
Yeah, my buddy RJ puts that on, and it's just fun. And any Jeep event you go to, you get some amazing people, but that one brings in the people coming from Washington, Oregon, California, South Dakota, and all parts in between. And it's just a blast. And of course, old Jeeps are just cool. So we hit that one every year. And Trail Hero, Rich is just such a good supporter anyways. In fact, I've got one of his engines here now. We're looking at which direction we want to go to build it for a project he's got coming up. And he sends me people, and, I told Rich, we'll be there as a vendor. We'll be there. So cool. Right now it's just a matter of trying to get caught up though.
Right.
But we'll be down at the Winter Jamboree this year as well. That one's a fun event as well.
So how many projects do you have in the shop right now?
I've got 3 of my own waiting to get in. I just pulled my TJ over so we can start doing some stuff to it. But let's see, we've got 5 vehicles at the shop currently. One of which is one really nice guy out of Wyoming that he's got a beautiful LJ, and he didn't want to wait as long as it was going to take me to get to it. And I fully understand that. So he took it elsewhere, but it needs a lot of help. And so we're doing stuff to help him out right now and get it dialed in. And then, so it's not a full conversion, but we're doing a lot to it. And then we've got I think it's 4 others there for full conversions right now.
Wow. Excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear that things are going in the right direction, and that it looks like the future is bright.
Oh, absolutely. It's such a fun industry to be in too. It's cliche, but people say, the saying is you don't work a day in your life if you're doing what you love. And man, I'm telling you, I'm just having so much fun at this.
That's awesome. Yes. And anything else, you going to take some time for yourself and your wife, now that you're empty nesters now, right?
Yes, we are. Well, we are in a sense, but our youngest that got married, we said, you two, why don't you just come stay with us for a while? Things are so expensive these days. Housing prices in Utah have followed California, and it's just extremely expensive for kids to get a start. So we told them, think about it before they got married, and you're welcome to come stay with us, and help with yard work and things like that. But so it's a bonus. They said, yes, we would like that. So it's a bonus. I get help with the yard work, and they get some chance to save some money for a down payment or whatever they want to do. And so we still have them here, thankfully. And we love it too. We don't want them gone. We love it when our kids come over. We just had everybody stay this weekend too for Thanksgiving. We do our Thanksgiving on Saturday, not Thanksgiving Day. So all the married kids can go to their other in-laws on Thanksgiving Day and not have to choose or trade off. That way everybody gets to get together every year.
Right.
And so they stayed over the weekend, and we just had a great time.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. If people want to find out more about V8 Swap Shop, how do they do that?
The website is v8swapshop.biz. .com was already taken. So it's .biz. And then we're on Facebook and Instagram. Instagram pretty much killed our account because I was just too busy and not posting much content. And so there's a V8_swap_shop. And that one we're just not doing anything with right now because the algorithm has killed it. So we started a new account recently that's got dots between the words. So V8.swap.shop.
Okay.
So
excellent.
We'll start doing some more content, but we've just been trying to keep up with the flow and not doing a whole lot of posting.
But you still take reservations for vehicles to get in line, get in queue?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'm working on multiple quotes at any given time, in fact.
And you're you're doing anything. You're not just doing Jeeps or off-road vehicles. If you got a Valiant in there, yeah.
Yeah, I got a 65 Valiant. We're going to do a whole V8 swap on it because it's, a local guy whose father passed away and it was his. So it's got a lot of sentimental value, but he wants it to be able to giddy up and go a little bit. So we're going to do some work on that. And any, square body LS swaps, we got people looking at those and hot rods. So yeah, we'll do it all.
Nice. Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, Tim. Well, thank you so much for spending this hour and talking with me and explaining what it is that you're doing and how you're doing it. And, I know you'll be successful at it because you are a hard worker and you understand what it takes.
It's true. It's true. I'm not afraid of hard work.
That's important. And instill that in your kids. Sounds like you have with at least one of them. He's in there working with you.
Yes, with all of them. I've instilled that. I learned that from my father and instilled that into my kids as well. And they all excel at everything they do because they're intelligent, but harder workers as well.
Excellent. Well, Tim, thank you. And you have a great rest of your day and say hello to everybody for me. And I hope to see you maybe at Easter Jeep if you're out there.
Yeah. Will you guys be at Winter Jamboree by chance?
No, I'm not going to make Winter Jamboree, but I am going to be at Easter Jeep this year.
Okay. Well, good. Then we look forward to seeing you. Tell Shelly hi for me, please. You guys are great. We appreciate your support as well.
All right. You take care and have a good one.
Thank you. You too, Biggers.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, that's another episode of Conversations with Big Rich. I'd like to thank you all for listening. If you could do us a favor and leave us a review on any podcast service that you happen to be listening on, or send us an email or a text message or a Facebook message, and let me know any ideas that you have, or if there's anybody that you have that you think would be a great guest, please forward the contact information to me so that we can try to get them on. And always remember, live life to the fullest. Enjoying life is a must. Follow your dreams and live life with all the gusto you can. Thank you.